In this video, we are going to learn how to save material swatches in your materials library and how to organize your materials library efficiently for later use. So there's multiple ways to do this. And really and truly, it's just finding the best methods or best practices to really keep your stuff organized. Now, right now, I have everything located on my desktop that relates to this module, but for this assignment, we are going to work to start to add materials to this dining room vignette. However, before we start adding anything willy-nilly, we'd like to have everything organized and ready to go. So previously, in previous videos, it was shown how to save and crop materials and make sure everything is to its best format. So you can see that these are organized. And these are the materials that are going to be applied based on this visual reference here. So when I look at this, I can see that these are keyed so that this wood finish is going to be applied in multiple places. We'll see it here on the floor. We'll see it here on this chair rail, the molding that's here around the window, or the casing, I should say. And then number 4, for example, is relating to the feature wall. Then number 2 is relating to the chair fabric. And then we can see that number 1 is related to the wood finish again. And then we have the area rug. Now, the other thing that we're going to add to this that's not in our current swatches that have been downloaded for this assignment is a piece of artwork. Now, you can choose any artwork that you would like, and really you just want to look at your reference image and the module. So for example, when I'm looking at this one, I can see that these chairs are going to have quite a bold, like fuchsia pattern or magenta, whatever color you want to call that. And then we're going to have a feature wall, which is going to have the green marble. So, and then we've got the darker and the pattern. So there's kind of a lot going on in that sense. And we need something to balance that out because this is a strong color, but we don't have that pink repeated anywhere. So for the rendering, that's what I want to think about when I'm looking. Now, obviously, we might have some art sources that we particularly go to that we know we can pull from, or if we were doing a real life rendering for a client, then we would be able to pull from that. So for this though, all I did was type in like modern artwork horizontal because I knew I want this to be in a horizontal orientation for this assignment to go on that back wall. And so I've scrolled and looked until I found a piece that I felt like was appropriate for this space. And so for example, here's the image. Actually, that one's the one that's cropped. Here's the image before it's cropped, just saved from the internet. Now, the biggest thing about that is if I go to apply this to the piece of art on the wall, we're going to have a white border and we're going to have some shadowing. I do want to go ahead and keep this little floating frame that's around this canvas because that will work just fine when I actually go to create the piece of artwork to go on the wall, but I don't want all the rest of this. So in any simple editor on your computer, so this one is just like a JPEG editor on my computer, all I'm going to do is select with the selection tool. I am going to use my marching ants and select that. And then I'm going to go to tools and crop it. So again, using any photo editor of your choice, you're just going to crop this image or any image that you find and just make sure that it's got either just the artwork or if there's a floating frame around it like this that you want to incorporate, just crop up to that. And then you're just going to hit save. And that way you've got this nice clean artwork. And again, we're all ready to bring that into our model when it's time. So I've got that all positioned. Now, a lot of times with materials libraries, I will actually have a materials library just saved on my computer. And a lot of times I'll have it organized where I have flooring, artwork, finishes, tile, like ones that I've used in previous renderings and organize it. But then a lot of times I am working and downloading and selecting my finishes by project, which is what we're doing here. So I'm just organizing and like using my reference image to make sure, like, have I thought about the finish for the wood floor? Have I thought about the fabrics that are going to be used in this space? Same for the area rug, feature wall, in the fact that this is going to have a wainscoting, however you say that word, everybody says it differently. So those are what are being featured here in this folder, because it will make our life much easier as we move forward to go ahead and start applying these materials. So now they're ready to go. And now we need to actually create these in SketchUp. So to do that, we are going to open up our SketchUp model. And we have our model here, our vignette. But what we need to do is, before we can apply the materials, we have to bring them into the actual program itself. Because right now, we can use what's the paint bucket up here. And if I click on the paint bucket, it's going to open up one of these floating palettes. Now, mind you, I am on a Mac computer, so things are going to look a little different, but the idea is the same. You're going to have the paint bucket open and it's going to have a palette like this, and it's going to have various options for you to create a materials library. So on mine, what I want to do is I am going to create one, and I'm going to call it FS Materials by FSCJ. And that's going to be my library for this that's going to be incorporated into my SketchUp program. For me, the way I do that is I come right here where it's on list, and I am on the brick here, because if you look, I can see what I could do is just right now I could select a color and play here, and I could go ahead and apply purple to all this. I could play with the brightness and the grayscale slider and change this. I could do the same thing here and play with all these sliders to create colors. Or I could go right here and pick green and say, I want green for this wall, but we want to customize this. So I am going to click on the brick here, and I am right here on my list, going to drop down that item. And so what it's going to ask me is, do I want a new list? Do I want to duplicate one, or do I want to remove? So I'm going to start a new. And so right now it's just generic at my textures, but I'm going to call this Materials by FSCJ. And I'm going to say, okay. So now my list is made, it's named, but it's empty. It doesn't have any materials on it. So I have to actually bring materials in to apply to this. Okay. So right next to this, I have another little drop down, and I can bring in a texture. So I'm going to say new texture. And this is where having everything organized is going to make life easy. So I can go to my desktop and I can locate that folder that I already have. And I'm going to start with the first one, and I'm going to bring in the wood flooring. I'm going to say open. Right now, it's going to automatically pop up with the same name that it's saved on my computer. And then it's going to be pretty much a default of the width and the height of the 3 feet. Now, what this is referring to is the repeating pattern, because this is coming in as a texture, not an image where it's just one image. We want this to repeat, or another word is called tiling, so that it creates that seamless wood look on the floor, or it creates a wallpaper pattern or a fabric pattern. So right now, until I know exactly what that measurement needs to be, or that scale, I can just leave this as the default. So I'm just going to hit OK. So it just brings in that material. Again, we can always edit this. So the next thing I'm going to do is keep repeating what I just did. I'm going to bring in the chair upholstery, and I'm going to say open. Again, I don't have to change the name, and I'm not going to mess with the scale or anything at the moment. I'm going to say okay. So let's repeat, do texture, area rug, open. Okay, now this one, you'll notice the width and the height are a little bit different. It depends on the ratio of the image. That's okay. I'm going to hit okay again. Go to the next one, new texture, feature wall. Okay. And the last one I'm going to do is the wall panel finish, open, and say okay. Now I'm not going to bring in the artwork on this one, because I'm not going to use the artwork as a texture. That one I'm going to bring in as an image later on as we get further along. Okay, so that is how we actually create our library. And if I want to click off of that, you can see by default in the paint bucket or the materials library that there's already some built in to this. So I could use colors, and it's going to give me, oops, sorry, delayed a little bit. It's going to give me a list of all these colors that I could pull from and make on these, apply to these fabrics and chairs. But again, they're not going to have textures. These are just colors. I could do asphalt and concrete if I was doing a roof. I could do water or tile. Again, my computer's having to catch up today. And I could see some built-in tile patterns that are already available to me in SketchUp. But again, these are not the ones we want to use. They're not the most exciting. So to get back to it, if you go off of your list, you just find your, drop down your list, and I can get back to the one I just created by clicking on Materials by FSCJ. And so there's my materials. So now if my model is ready, if everything's how I want it to be, I can start to apply those materials, which we are going to do in the next video.